Howdy and welcome back to the workshop. We won't be here for very long because we're actually heading down to the most magical place in pattern welding in the whole wide world, and that is the absolute smack dab middle of Florida. Now, we're going down to visit with Steve Schwarzer, along with a couple of my other close friends, Kurt Holland and Logan Gillihan. Now, I had two things that I needed to do in Florida. I was planning on going down to visit Steve anyway, just to hang out, work with him. And then my friend Adam Booth, A-Bomb79, offered to help out with the Beaudry rebuild project, and so it was actually a little bit more economical for me to drive down. So a few of the goals while we were down there was, one, to get Kurt Holland to learn how to conceptualize and learn how to design Damascus patterns. He and I are going to do a collaborative billet that we're then going to split up and each use for some different knives. And then the other two big billets that we really wanted to get done, one was using Steve's jelly rolling machine. I have never jelly rolled steel before, and Steve built a neat contraption to be able to jelly roll steel using his power twister. And the third billet of steel is intended for our friend Matthew Hartwig. Matt is a knife maker who lives here in Bozeman. He's a really close personal friend of mine, and he's getting married here in about a week and a half. Well, I made it to Florida to Steve Schwarzer's shop. Now we have Steve, his wife Laura, Kurt Holland, and Logan Gillihan, Northwest Blade Works. We're getting ready for a fun couple days of pattern welding and forging and just having a good old time. So let's head inside. Squarespace is an awesome way to get to build out a website, whether you're a travel blogger or a bladesmith or a shoe salesman. Whatever you do, Squarespace makes it easy with their pre-laid out website designs to be able to build galleries, places to purchase your work, blogging areas, about me pages, everything. It's all so simple. For example, say I wanted to write up a little blog spot. I can use one of their pre-laid out designs for the blog that looks nice. A great way to be able to present information. But if you're not stuck in 2006 making blog posts, there's still plenty of other awesome ways to present information from a Squarespace website to the public. So if you have information that you're excited about presenting to the world, or just want to share something that you're passionate about, or make a website for your business, whatever it is, I like using Squarespace. I highly recommend them. So if you're interested in checking them out, go to squarespace.com/Will Stelter for 10% off your first purchase of a website domain or website. Thank you, Squarespace. With that, let's jump back on it. Kurt, what are you working on?
Making Damascus.
Damascus steel?
Damascus steel.
Whoa.
Yeah.
I actually drew up this pattern for the first time when I was in Italy on a train, and basically it is a bit of a kind of funky mosaic pattern taking a bar of C shape. So after you forge weld together, you forge it down on the bias and you get your C shape. After that, I want to rip half of my bar in half and stack it up so I have a bit of an S shape going into my billet with some heavy 1080 on either side. After that, forge welding that together, re-squaring it so I have a little bit more of an aggressive S, kind of a Z shape, and then from there be able to four-way it to get a kind of gnarly, sharp, very cool, very different mosaic pattern. Logan, what are you working on?
I'm just here for the nonsense.
Ah, good. So this is the first billet that we're going to stack up. This is going to turn into a jelly roll, and so we don't want it to be super fine, so we're going to do lots of bold layers. I think we'll probably do 8 or 9 layers, probably 9 layers total, which means that each layer will have multiple pieces of 15 and 20 and multiple pieces of 1080. Decided to split the billet in two because it was too big to forge. So Logan's going to do one half. I've already got the other half welded up. So Logan and I are each going to forge down our 5-layer billets into long, wide bars. The reason why we want these long, wide bars is because with the power twisting method that we're doing, it's a lot easier to roll it up when it's a little bit thinner, and we still want to have that mass, and we don't want it to be too ridiculously long. So we're going to shoot for a couple inches wide and about 3/8 to a 1/4 inch thick, and as long as that comes out to be is where we'll end up. Forging something this thin and this long out is a real pain because the material cools off very quickly. It wants to move around when you're hitting it with the power hammer, so it doesn't want to stay straight. And just managing something this long and keeping it straight is dadgum impossible. Fortunately, Steve has this very cool rolling mill. A rolling mill is different than a press or a power hammer. It has these powered rollers that is a directly linear drawing out motion. You put it in at 1/4 inch by 1, it'll come out as 1/8 inch by 1 and twice as long. They also leave a really excellent surface finish. Most of the steel material that we receive and can go and buy at the steel supplier was sent through a rolling mill at some point in order to get it into the shape that you buy it in.
Hey, watch that lighter.
I was like, oh my gosh. All right, Steve, what are we doing?
I was fixing to roll it. We made the rig for it. Let me show you the end of it. We made an axle for the end, and it was welded to here. And then that goes back in here.
So for this process in the jelly roll, because we have this twisting machine and we're not doing it by hand, we want a nice wide, thin bar so we can get lots and lots of rolls doing this power method. My bar ended up being about 3.5 inches wide and about 4 feet long. It was a real bear there at the very end because the material cools off so quickly, and then it's an awful lot of material to grind to get it cleaned up, ready to roll. That's pretty good.
Go back in the heat.
And the pattern that we did there was kind of a hybrid between W's and straight layers. So what we have is layers of 5 layer, and then 5 layers of W's, 5 layer, 5 layers of W's, 5 layer, 5 layers of W's, 5 layer. And so when you twist that, what you end up getting is a really cool mix of straight lines and then kind of fiery, explosion-y fingers of W's kind of in the middle of it. And so we took that billet, we forged it out, we twisted it up, and now I'm ready to chop it up and send it out to the different knife makers who are going to be contributing pieces to this project. All right, well, we've wrapped up our weekend, well, kind of the weekend.
Yeah, extended weekend.
Well, we've wrapped up our long weekend here at the Schwarzers. Steve, what do you think the importance is of doing stuff like this from time to time?
Anytime you got a brain trust like this, it's a big deal. We got independent thinkers that are very skilled in their crafts. You put them all together, and then you get to make something really unique and unusual. And our egos push us to do things we shouldn't ought to do, but we do them anyway.
So Logan, what did we get up to this weekend?
So we stacked what felt like about 55 different billets of Damascus. In reality, I think we're going to end up with 5 or 6 finished mosaic pieces that we have for some collaborations coming up, as well as some top secret projects that we can't talk about yet.
Now, Laura, you've had quite a few groups come through here, and why are we your favorite?
Because you are. Because you are. And these are...
No one else brings cigars, do they?
Nobody else brings cigars or really nice whiskey.
And Kurt, what was the biggest thing you took away from this weekend?
I think I learned most that you can, if you do things cleanly with Damascus, just about anything will look pretty good. And you just have to learn as you go. Yeah, that's pretty much what I learned.
Yeah. Oxygen's a bad thing. Get rid of it and it'll weld.
Yeah.
That's why living in Montana is amazing, because we have very little oxygen.
That's true.
Yep. So much fun to get to be in community with some awesome people, forge some fun steel, get my finger melted a little bit by Steve, but it's fine.
It'll grow back.
It'll grow back.
It will.
You're
like
young
a
yet.
lizard.
You're
You grow
young
new
yet.
body parts.
You've got 9 more.
Yeah. Have some delicious food and get to come away with some steel that we're going to make some projects out of. It's a great time. Form some memories we'll be able to look back on for the rest of our lives.
Yeah, I want to be there to help you enjoy them.
Yeah.
That's right.
At my stage of the game, I'm going to have to hurry.
Oh, man.
Wow.
All right, now it's time to head back to our respective homes. Yep. Cornfield, some
Tennessee.
small hills, and then they live here and I live in the
Yeah.
We got a hill that's 5
See you,
inches
bye.
tall. See you, bye.
So go home.
So we had a great time down there in Florida. I'm back in Montana now, drove the 2,500 miles home or whatever it was. Really, for me, I just kind of wanted to have fun, get to see Steve. We kind of took over his shop for the weekend, but I learned a ton. Steve has an amazing wealth of knowledge for pattern welding and for knife making in general. He's one of the foremost pattern welders in the world. He's been at the top of the game for the last 200 or 300 years now. I forget the actual date. He and his wife Laura are some of my all-time favorite people. They're my adoptive knife-making Florida parents, and they do teach and host classes. So if you guys are interested in learning pattern welding, learning knife making, or spending time with a living legend of the craft, go ahead. I'll have a link to Steve's website down below. It's well worth the time and money to go down there to get to learn with Steve. He is an amazing wealth of knowledge. If you do go down, though, bring good questions and have an appetite for learning, because there's a whole lot to take in. And every time I leave, I always feel like I didn't have enough time there. And so here is the current jelly roll billet. It is 1.25 inches round and about 15 inches long. So as it turns out, the jelly roll that I did has a little bit of a flaw in the steel. There's a couple different ways to be able to handle that. I believe the reason is that I didn't get it quite tight enough before giving it a full squish. There's a little bit of a gap in there, and I was hoping it was going to forge shut, but didn't quite make it. So I need to consult with Steve and see what his thoughts are. The different ways to fix it would be to let it sit in a container of muriatic acid and let that kind of eat the scale that's kind of sitting inside there, and then forge it closed underneath some squaring dies. The other way to do it would be to cut this up into probably 2 or 3 pieces, chuck it up in my lathe, and drill out the core before putting a new piece in there. So I could do a different element in there. I could do an explosion. I could do solid 1080, whatever I wanted to do. I would probably do the solid 1080. I think that would look the best. Or 15 and 20, honestly, and then I could have 1080 around the outside. An unfortunate bump in the road, but it is fixable. But we're going to have to tackle that when we get to the video about finishing out this pattern. Thanks again to our patrons for patronizing us, along with Squarespace for sponsoring today's episode.